Welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Servant Real. I'm your host, ServantKing, and you know what we do here? We sit down, we talk to the creators, the influencers, the entrepreneurs. We kind of pick their brain and chop it up with them to kind of see what they're doing and what they got going on in the world. And today, I have a very special guest.
Thank you.
She is my first female guest. So, I got like 8 male like 2 days ago. You don't never have women on your show, and that's never been the plan, but me and you been talking about this for at least a couple weeks now, so it's already been in the works.
Glad you're doing something about it.
Yes, I did. I don't want to get killed. So I really appreciate you. She is a writer, mental health advocate. She got a lot going on. We gonna dig into all of it. So Ishna, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you from, and
Okay. So my name is Ishna Hagan, but I go by Ishna Waikil on social media. I'm from a small town near Tallahassee, in Florida. I moved to Jacksonville when I was about 10 years old, and so I grew up here from 10 to 18, and then I moved away, which is why a lot of people don't know me, because I was very secluded and like certain classes where I never saw anyone else, AP classes. I just don't like saying that. But I didn't want anybody to be like, what type of classes she was in, so let me clarify.
For the people that don't know what AP means, go ahead and tell them.
Okay, it's just advanced placement classes. That's what it stands for.
Those were the smart kids, y'all.
Yeah, so like I said, I did school here from middle school through high school in those classes, and I left at 18 for college, and I ended up at Howard University in D.C., and so that's where I had spent the last, maybe I was there for 5 years, and then I came back to Jacksonville. And I've kind of just slowly, I've been meeting people and
right,
and just writing. But yeah, that's my story.
Now,
to start.
Before we get into the writing, so you own you build websites, you help brands, people that's trying to build their brands. Kind of explain what you do there and how you even got into that.
All right, so my degree is in broadcast journalism.
Okay.
And so once I came back to Jacksonville, I started working at a company called Web.com, and I was a copywriter there. So basically, it's a chain where, they do their interviews, they send their information to me. I'm the person who wrote the websites. I wrote each web page for different companies, North America and Canada. And then we sent it to someone for it to be designed. So I'm a part of the build team, but specifically the copywriting aspect of it. So I do that on my own for people who's, business owners, entrepreneurs who are looking to build a website. I also have a connection with a graphic designer. So we kind of offer those services like all in one, encompassing just the writing, the copy that you need for your website professionally done, as well as the graphic design professionally done. So that's how it started out. That's kind of my history for the experience, but I've been writing for a very long time. I did really well in school in English classes, so I've had a long, long time to hone this skill. And yeah, I do that. I've done it for a while, the last probably at least 10 years. And I'm getting ready I'm getting ready to transition to something different, which is the mental health counseling that you mentioned.
So when you started doing the website, help building the brands, I was just kind of like a offshoot of your writing.
Right.
You were just kind of getting into it because you already had experience.
Right, I already was doing that for someone else, basically. I was writing for a company, making them money.
Right.
And so, to tell you the truth, once I did the numbers and, realized what I could charge.
Doing my own.
Right, it's just extremely more lucrative. It just makes more sense. I have the skill. I'm making someone else money. Why not make it for myself? I do have the credibility as well because, like I said, I have a background in broadcast journalism.
Right.
So not only can I write, but I also know how to get like the right information, fact check, just different skills that you learn as a journalist. However, I tend not to get too deep in the journalism aspect, like as far as hard news, because I just don't want to do that anymore. But I have that knowledge and those tools in order to just create good copy and get to know people, talk to people, get their information for what I need, whatever I need to write.
So I see like you do a lot of writing for the artists. we have like a lot of musicians, and you kind of write. So how does that process work? Is that something they reach out to you and they kind of get you to kind of just help their brand by writing about them? Is that something you do? You reach out to them because you're interested in what they're doing? Like, how does that whole connection go when it comes to writing about an artist?
All right, so I built a website of my own for myself called Just One Thing Music Reviews.
Okay.
And I write music reviews for artists. How that started, I like music.
Right.
I love it, but I really love the breakdown part of pretty much anything. I'm a hyper analytical person.
Right.
If you know me personally, you'll know sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, depending on who the person is.
Yeah, exactly.
But so I enjoy just like feeling songs, listening to the lyrics, seeing like what substance they have in the songs. And I took that desire and just that appreciation for music, like just a genuine heart of music and being in it, like wrapped in it while you listen. I took that enjoyment and I just started writing about it, like what I feel when I hear the songs, what are the lyrics telling me, what pictures they're painting. And I just started with artists like who were coming up, somewhat famous, like D Smoke is an artist that I reviewed.
Okay,
He's doing extremely well now. But when I first wrote about him, he has a music background, but when I first wrote about him, he was kind of becoming more known, like in the household for, just a number of people. So I write about artists like that who are up and coming. And yeah, I started off with a homepage, but the word spread that I write music reviews and people like the work and like how I can actually tune into what they meant or what their song is about. And so to answer your question about how music reviews go for artists coming to me, essentially that's a service. So if they find me and they want to hear what I think, they want me to break down their song, it's a service for that, right? I charge for that. And essentially I get their song, I get a short bio, 2 to 3 sentence bio from them and their payment.
Right, absolutely.
And I tell them what I thought of the song, except for I've taken music appreciation. So it's coming from, like I said, a place of credibility, a person who's going to structure your review. And I create a platform where, one, it goes on my website where others can see it, but also a product where it's like a magazine layout that you have as a cover for yourself that you can use in your own marketing kits or just for your own purpose.
So, and I see that it doesn't just stop at music because I guess it is music. It was a poetry when we first met. It was at Big Brother T Be Honest, his release party for his book album, and you kind of wrote kind of get into that. It's not a review. What is it called at the back of the book when you kind of
It's just a back cover about the author.
Okay.
So we met at Tavares's book release party.
Yep.
And so I've known him for maybe a year or so or more than that. That's neither here or there. But he knows that I write, and I know that he was working on the book. So I'm extremely supportive. So I kind of was around throughout his process of writing, and then I ended up, being the person who wrote the back cover for the book. So if you got his book,
I got you.
Even though I don't want to get too much into that, but yeah, so that's how that happened. I wanted to come out and support the event, and of course it makes sense since I am, one of the contributors to, everything coming together. But he's a good person. I was happy that he reached out to me. I'm thankful that he even, allowed me to be to choose me to be the person to write that for his first book that was published. But that's how that happened.
You say you do a lot of writing. Are you interested in writing your own books, or you just kind of on the analyzing of the artist that's at hand?
Yeah, I like writing for other people. I like to make other people look.
Gotcha.
I naturally have a positive perspective, and I believe in pretty much anyone. as long as they're backing it, as long as they can back it, and it doesn't become just superficial or just worthless support. Outside of that, I really do believe if you put your mind to it, you can do it. So usually starting out, I'm an extremely supportive person. That's what I want to do, support others, write for others. It's just with my history and my experience and just my skill set, it's just offered as a service now.
So I remember reading some of your material, I think, and I talked to you about it. One that stuck out the most was your reflections of a father and daughter relationship. I thought was very good. Before we get into the ins and outs of that, how did that come about? Was that something you came up with, and you just wanted to kind of put your perspective out there? Was there somebody that reached out to you for your perspective? How did that whole process come about?
I'm a contributing author in that book. How it happened. Once again. All right. So my high school English teacher, who I took. We've known each other for more than 15 years, and she's a writer as well. So anyone that she knew in her circle who could write, she reached out to them solely because of her relationship with her father. So you also had to have that other commonality, like either dysfunctional or something different. Because I wouldn't say my story is necessarily dysfunctional. No one wants to tag that on their relationship. Mine is not that extreme, but it could have been better. Like the way that I see it or say it is it could have been better. So she reached out. Her name is Kathy Garland. The name of the book is Daddy, Reflections of Father-Daughter Relationships. And yeah, she reached out to about 13 women, and we all wrote our story into to her, and she kind of took it from there and put everything together and put the book together. Because it was like a 2-year process.
Kind of let's dig into that. You don't have to go as you go as deep as you want. When I read it, like I told you, I think that it was good because it gave me a perspective. I think a lot of fathers, especially in our community, all we know is lack of money. I'm gonna let you kind of go more into it. All we know is lack of money. So when I read it, kind of showed me there's more, and we kind of always know there's more, but we don't know how much it affects the child. We don't tap into other aspects of life, whether it's emotional, mental. You want to kind of dig into that, kind of what you spoke to.
Right. My story is that my dad didn't lack. He's financially stable. He's been stable for a very long time. As far as like looking at the stock market, investing, he operates as like a small bank in his town or lender to be more accurate. And that's what I watched. Like I'd be at his house and we'd be laying down whatever. We've just taken our baths and we're watching stock market still. Like from the morning, it's nighttime, right? And I'm just like, bruh, why are we watching this still? And the numbers are just down there with Dow, and all of that. But what I didn't realize is that he has money in those companies.
Exactly.
But the things that were more obvious were just like people coming over. My family wanted to like go over to his house with me because if he gave me money, he would give them money, like a cousin. He gave me like $50 or $100. He'd give you at least 10 or 20.
So I want to go to your dad's house with
you. And so that's what I saw from my dad for a very long time. But I grew up with my mother, and wherever she moved, we moved around a little bit when I was younger. From, like I said, near Tallahassee to Sanford, Tampa, and then Jacksonville. So I grew up with her, but I always saw him like during summers or visited during holidays or just if she went to town because it's her hometown as well. I went to my dad's. And that's my story. Like I always it was plenty money, like always. And it registers different for children because there were times where I'm like, he'd ask me like, do you know what bill this is? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't control it. Like it goes to my mom. It really didn't hold too much meaning at such a young age, like 6 or 7. But so that's what I knew. My dad, he had a girlfriend who's I call her my stepmom, but she was the one who did more of the emotional and the caretaking. Very traditional setup. Just talking to us. We went everywhere that she went, feeding us, bathing us, all of that, and just like I said, the emotional part is what she provided, and just also mental, talking and see how your day is going and all of that. And I ended up kind of feeling closer to her as I got older. And so that made me think, like, although I've had the structure of, finances, the stability, I still feel closer to the person who actually took care of me. So that is what I wanted to kind of like express in my story. It's like, although you're providing, you're going to work and all that, which makes sense because it is necessary. I don't want to take away from what he did. It was necessary and important to have that piece. Just like maybe a kiss goodnight, reading a book here and there when you could. It's
Right.
hard for working parents.
Right.
But when you could, I think would have helped the relationship have a stronger bond where I don't feel closer at times to my stepmom than my own father.
Right. So what is it, I guess this is for women in general, do you think they lack in when the father doesn't have emotional peace, right? Like, what do you think they miss once they become older? And because sometimes we think the law says you're grown at 18, right? But we know from just life, you're still a baby at 18. You're still a baby at 21.
Really
you're still a baby at 25, right? You're still learning. What do you think some of the things is that daughters miss from their father, or some of the things that they yearn for from their fathers once they grow up? They didn't have the emotional. Maybe they had the presence, as far as physically. They didn't have like the emotional or the mental attachment. What do you think that kind of?
Okay, so this is it has a number of ways to look at this, and mine is very dynamic because I have two brothers who are very loving.
Right. Okay.
So it's like the Lord blessed me with growing up with two boys who kind of made up for it. So as far as like deep-rooted issues, that's why I say I have nothing against my father. I do actually appreciate the example because that's why I'm sharp now with the business, you know. So he did plant something important in me. Like I said, luckily for me, I had two brothers who kind of made up for that emotional aspect,
like
the physical part, affection and all of that, the hugs, you know, taking care of me, protecting me if anyone, you know, felt some type of way. You know, I had people I knew would protect me. So that's one thing I want to say. I think you said, what do women want, maybe?
And when I say want, maybe I shouldn't say want, but okay, so I'll use males as an example. When we don't have a father, we respond very emotionally in society, right? Because we kind of take on our mothers. If there's no male to kind of step in, kind of show a young man how to control the emotions. So you can kind of see when you look at the world today, when you see these murders, you see these killings, you can always tie it to a fatherless home. Most of the time, now you got the most of the time you have a fatherless home, right? You have young boys that's responding emotionally over something that probably isn't, nothing is big enough to try to take someone's life. That's what I mean from a woman's point of view. What do you think women kind of act out? Yes. You get what I'm saying? Like, what do you kind of see from female's point of view that shows when they didn't have a father that was present?
I feel like that's treading deep waters for me, only because my experience is different. What I hear, you know, is that women seek men for the emotional connection, the physical. They need them, and they may start out early seeking that and end up in situations that they don't want to be in, where is it like an unwanted pregnancy or just a poor relationship with someone young. You're both young, don't know how to treat each other well. That's some of the things that I've heard. I wasn't like that. I've been pretty smart and pretty sharp for most of my life. Really all of it. Even as a child, I kind of was like a thinker and analytical. But that's one of the things. They seek it in other places, other men. And when there's like desperateness behind it, you're not choosy. You just take whatever comes first to you, and that's not always
you don't analyze enough.
Right. You just like, thank you, and you're happy to have it, but sometimes it's, you know, it's a disguise, the devil in disguise type situation. For me, I can tell you, it just made me more emotionalist. Because like I said, I grew up with two boys, and then my father, like, there weren't hugs and all of that stuff. So for me, I kind of grew up like a tomboy. You know, we didn't cry a lot in our house, so I don't cry a lot. People are like, I haven't seen you cry in years. And honestly, I'm like, well, I actually don't feel sad. But just like hearing that and thinking about it, even like the movies that make some women cry, that didn't happen to me for a very long time until I had a child. And so, you know, hormones and like the estrogen levels and all that stuff shift. So then I was like, okay, now I see what they were talking about. Because now I'm over here crying and I don't know why.
I got
you know. So that's kind of like how I took I just was a little boy,
right.
chilling with the dudes. Real cool. I have the ability to connect with them because of that.
Right.
But I was too much chilled, with them.
I got you. I want to kind of cross over to mental health, which I guess we kind of treading with this last conversation. So what's kind of sparked your interest in that? And so for me, starting to seem like mental health, I look at it as a good and a bad. It's almost like a trend, right? We talk about like financial stability, financial freedom, owning businesses. That's starting to become more of a trend. Yeah, I think that's a good and it's a bad thing. I think it's good that people are taking ownership, like wanting to own something, wanting to create multiple streams of income. I also think it's bad if you just want to be a boss, say that you're a boss, though. You know what I'm saying? Or just to fit the mold. When it comes to mental health, I think it's good. I think it's great that we're starting to point out that we have issues and we have to start acknowledging them before we can fix it. And I also say everything that happens, somebody like mental health as a mental health issue. So first kind of explain to the people and me that the actual definition of mental health. What is it?
Well, for me, it's if I'm going to define it, I did not look this up, but it's just like your mentality, your mind, how things are flowing and connecting, your perspective. Do you have positive outlooks? Do you have negative outlooks? It details how you view life, and what kind of manner, and so you have the spectrum where you have people where I put myself, it's like I view things positive. And then you have the other end of the spectrum where you have people who look at life through a negative lens. And so I feel like that's one thing. And then there's other issues that could go on where your balances, like just your chemical balances, are imbalanced, and it's just so much that could go into mental health.
Absolutely. Okay. So what is it? Kind of tap into what you're doing now. You kind of spoke to going back to school and kind of doing things in that space. So what is it that you're doing?
So right now I am pursuing a master's degree in mental health counseling.
Okay.
Right now I'm at the process of taking or preparing for the GRE and then taking it. And I have everything else as far as like letters of recommendation, and there's like a certain things you need. So my last hurdle is the GRE and getting past that, which I connected with someone in one of my groups. So that'll be taken care of soon. Once I do that, I'm going to enroll at a university and basically start my path to obtaining a degree. I wish there was a way around it.
Right, I know, right?
But for people to actually come to your office and just, feel like you should be talking to them like, who are you? And you can say, this is me and this is my credentials.
Right.
I have to go back to school for that. Outside of that, however, I feel like I've been supporting people, as I mentioned earlier.
Right.
I'm extremely supportive. So this is kind of where it comes from. I worked in schools while I attended Howard. I worked at a charter school in D.C., an elementary school. And so a lot of those children I talked to, and I started hearing stories that I've never, experienced or heard, like, young people being suicidal. And I was blown, like, why? What could you be experiencing and going through in so many few years of life?
Right.
And just people clinging to me. Like, a lot of people open up to me. Sometimes I tell people to stop talking. I don't need to become an accomplice to this situation. But that was something that I noticed, that people really trust me, and that's not. It seems almost unnatural for people to trust in the first place these days, which is also problematic. So yes, trust issues, having trust issues is problematic, and all of that falls back to your trauma as a child, the hurt, the pain you experienced, which also ties back into your mental health. Again, a lot of people came to me. I worked in high schools. They were like, "You should work here." The students. I'll defend people, don't let them talk to you that way. Your teachers, they're humans. We're all in error at some point, so I kind of give different perspectives and try to support people, defend people. And so that was school, like in the schools that I worked in from elementary to high school. And it was always children clinging to me, telling me their personal stories that left me just shocked. And they always wanted me to stay around, be there for them. That was one aspect. And then, just like I said, I grew up with boys. So one of my focuses actually is going to be African American males, because for whatever reason I can get in
Right.
We're not gonna say it has anything to do with how I look, but they really do tell me like real personal stuff, like dating back to like molestation and just stuff people do not talk about.
Right.
Like I said, some people have told me like where they're where things are,
where the body is in the
well,
backyard.
yeah, and so for some people, I did wonder if it would get to that extent.
Right.
So it wasn't that extreme yet, but it would be like where whatever this is, that you shouldn't have on you. And I'm like, well, I don't. What do you tell me for?
Right.
But people wouldn't even suspect that I know the person or that we're linked or anything. So they felt safe because they're like, who's gonna, go after her or find her or know anything. Right. So they would like pour out all of this stuff on me. I was in D.C. with one of my friends who was still in Jacksonville, just doing crazy stuff, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why? Right. But excuse me. But that was the story. Like, just all types of men, kind of just about their baby mamas. Some person, like one person, has sent me their child support case and the numbers and what he's paying, and I'm always like, why are they giving me these deep details?
Yeah, talk to that person because they're probably on the brink. Doing crazy.
But essentially they would say like, hey, like you're a good friend or you're a good listener or you should be a counselor or or someone's wife or something to help them in some type of way. And I opted for the mental health, mental health. Right, yeah, like I'm not trying to, I'll be ready for marriage and all that other stuff. But they would say you should support, like you should be supporting a man or there to support in some type of role. And the role that I've chosen is mental health counseling.
When it comes to different things that you hear men talk about, right? What is there a common denominator, or is that something that you're seeking to find out? You step into this role, like is there a common factor that you hear from each male? They give you a story, right? Whether it's molestation, baby mama, the law, money problems, right? Is there any one factor, or is it all? I mean, I know it's not going to be one, but you get what I'm saying. Is there a majority that usually seems that way? Because I just say that, and I ask that because we always feel in our community, father is black. So is usually one common denominator, or you kind of see a wide range of things?
It differs in some ways, and then it has its similarities. Like for maybe like 3 or 4 of them, that might be the reason, like the fatherless home. And just confused. Jacksonville is a commonality for a couple of them. But then you have the men who did have like either their father or a very strong male role model. But those are the ones who have the problem with women, like the baby mama issues.
Really?
Because they are, and this could be my bias as well.
Right, I got you.
But they are doing well and they can support, and it's very hard for them, I think, to deal with women who maybe aren't like digging up that status or that ego, supporting them in the way that they believe they've earned to be supported.
Right. So maybe their mother support their father a certain way.
That's another aspect. So I was just thinking male role models, and then just the man turning out well and stable, and he's like, you're gonna treat me like a king. Essentially, I've worked for this. But that's another aspect, like the people who come from the 2-parent home. And that's the one I think that pisses me off the most.
I got you. Go ahead.
Because this is why, because I feel like women were quiet about their sadness and their hurt and their pain, and they stayed and they did a lot of things to get their children raised and out the house.
Right.
So they don't talk. Even stuff outside of pain and their man. That's our problems, like our bodies, our mothers, our grandmothers aren't talking about it. So women didn't talk, and they didn't share. So now you have the children thinking everything was happy-go-lucky. And, mommy and daddy were perfectly fine and happy, and that's untrue. But then you have our generation with women like me who are more upfront and honest, no, I'm hurt. I'm hurt.
Right.
You need to, or we're going to have to put this on pause, and that's not really favored when you're just like in their face, like, I don't have to accept this actually, and you can. So find someone else. Do as you please, whatever you like. And so it makes some of the men, not all, but some, upset because they're not used to you being able to walk away and mean it. They're used to seeing their mothers be there. And then that brings in the conversation that some men have. Women aren't loyal. Like we don't stay, we don't know how to stick anything through.
Right.
And I think there's some validity to what men are saying. It's just, what are you talking about? Are you talking about staying through trauma?
Right.
Or are you talking about regular issues that relationships are going to face?
Right.
You know, our finances, we need to get better with this.
Right.
Or are you talking about you drunk every night? I don't see you.
Right.
Knock me out when you come. Like, all that extreme stuff. It's just like, no, but women then did stay through all of that. So they made it tough because they stayed literally for anything, but they don't tell you they were miserable and unhappy.
That's very true. So I guess for me, and then I guess, and this is another thing, I think the world nowadays, everything's extreme, right? So like, all women are this, or then all men are that. It's like we have no balance. Yeah, maybe some men are like this, and maybe some are like this. Everybody isn't. Okay, so let me ask you this. When it comes to a mental health counselor, therapist, or a psychiatrist, is there a difference? Are they the same person, just different titles? What's the difference?
So they are different. They vary based on degree and who can administer medicine. So psychiatrists can give you medicine. Essentially, if you all the way out there, like I said, the imbalance. And let me not, because I'm going to have to be way more serious when I'm like in a profession. But like right now, while I'm not there yet, I'm going to take my little, time. But basically, if you're just flat out, people are like, what is wrong with so-and-so? You're not supposed to phrase it that way. But that's usually when you're going to go see a psychiatrist who can give you something for an imbalance that you're probably not going to be able to control on your own. Some people go other routes, natural routes. They talk to herbalists and different people, just what they feel comfortable with. But a lot of the time, you end up seeing a psychiatrist. And then a therapist is just like you only need a master's. It's the start, essentially, of the path. You need a master's. You get to talk to people, but you can't give out medicine.
But you give like recommendations, I guess, or you should go see this.
Right. You recommend, or you can, I believe you can, you recommend them, and then they'll see a psychiatrist or a psychologist who can write the prescription for whatever you think they need.
And the mental health counselor is, when does that person off? What stage life is a person in? What all can you do once?
So the mental health counselor is essentially all of that, just they can't give you medicine.
Oh, okay.
So they would come to me as they would a psychiatrist or a psychologist, except for that person, the psychiatrist or the psychologist will have had more years of college, like just more years in the profession. They've written more about it. They've done more research, and they can administer your prescription and be like, go to your local Walgreens and get this today. Whereas with me, they're going to more so just, it's like talk therapy, where they just come in and they get things off their chest. That's the start for me. I probably will continue the path and become a psychiatrist, which means I will have to earn a PhD. But to start out, this is the path for me, and I'm fine right now with people just coming into the office. I'm not comfortable yet with giving out medicine. I don't know how I feel about that in the first place. I haven't made a decision, like giving out all this medicine to people where I stand with that. So I'm okay with just the talk therapy.
I know I guess you probably can't speak too much on it yet until you more so. But when you look at things now and then you possibly look at your future, do you think that a lot of issues can be solved without medicine? Do you think it's just a lot more self-evaluation, self-care? Do you think some people, they need to be on some kind of medication or dealing with emotions and like that?
For some people, I think they need the medicine. And why I say that is because I have someone extremely close to me who I was in the house and I saw them. And I was just like, there's no talking.
Right.
However, the crazy part is, like, and this is another part of my story why I'm going to get into this, is they were comfortable around me. So I actually could mellow them out, but I couldn't take away what was occurring, like in their brain.
So you seen them interact with other people, but when it came to you.
And that makes a difference. Like if you're already a trigger for this individual and they're in there, whatever they're in, episodes and whatever other names they have for it, just like when you're not your normal self, they respond. Like one person would flip them, like, just make them upset, piss them off. They go to walk in, need cigarettes.
The whole thing.
You know, and they just didn't trust the person, so they didn't want that person calling shots or making decisions, didn't want to listen, you know, like, just didn't respect them in that moment. But that's behavior outside of, like, what was going on in his mind. He would never do that, you know, to that individual. You know, this is crazy to me. This is the part I'm not supposed to share. But it was funny because although he was not in his mind, he still, like, understood. Like, so he wasn't behaving the way that he normally would behave. But he still was processing, this is my, you know, whoever, this is my so-and-so. And so he would start saying things that he really thought. You know what I'm saying? So none of the stuff that he was just, like, lashing out, it was weird the way he was doing it, but it was still the truth of what was really inside of him. So for that reason, I've seen just different people. I've seen someone schizophrenic. They do not bother you, though. I will say this again. If you are fine and you have good energy, because I was around this individual, and they liked me, like, hey, Ishna, they want to talk.
Right. You attract crazy people.
I know, right? And, you know, so someone asked me that question, and so that's where I was like, well, I think I'm pretty healthy, but I feel like I'm not judgmental.
Right.
So I feel like they do feel like they have, like, a warm spirit or feeling. I mean, a friend, like, within me. But I'm not stupid either. You know what I'm saying? So, and I grew up around stuff, so I'm just like, although you're here and I'm friendly and I'm talking to you, I have thought about a number of ways to get out this situation if necessary. So for those people, like I said, I've seen it, they need medicine. There are other people who do not. I think we can change the number of people who just have illnesses in the first place by changing the way our households look and are run. You know, eliminate the trauma, beatings, and all that stuff. Don't normalize the crazy stuff that we've normalized, and we can start kind of just fixing people naturally from our own behaviors.
What's the shift, do you think? When I kind of look at history. So you spoke to earlier. You talked about kids, right? That would be suicidal and they would be going through this. And I look at the times I grew up, my generation, our generation. It would be insane for a kid, not to be insane, but it'd be like suicidal. Like, what could you be going through? You know what I mean? Like, our parents didn't, and I don't look at it as a bad thing, because for me, I kind of understand now, like, children, we don't know better, and we take to heart that we shouldn't. So, what do you think has changed from those times and now? Or do you think that the way we were raised in those days, not right? We kind of did some things wrong, opposed to now where we let children be more open and be more vocal about how they feel and let them express their emotions anytime they feel like it. You think there should be a shift in how we handle that?
So there's a lot of ways to look at what you just said. That was a lot. But to start with our children, yes, I'm one of the parents. I have a 6-year-old. Let them talk. You know? Let them tell you the truth. Let them be honest and open about how they feel, what they're thinking. First of all, because they really are humans.
Right.
To sit there and act like your child don't have feelings or thoughts that aren't valid, to me is, you know, that logic in itself seems insane, that a person, because they're a little bit younger than you or whatever, 20 years younger than you, don't deserve to say how they feel or don't deserve to say how they think, respectfully, of course, to their parents. But that's one of the issues, is that no one could talk or tell anything. Because our parents would be like, child, you know, I got to go to work or whatever. They weren't there, or you don't feel comfortable talking to your parents because you've never had it done. You've never, you know, they've never made like an environment for you to feel comfortable talking to them. And so people talk like they compare nowadays to back in the day. And do you see all of our crazy uncles and aunties and stuff who are alcoholics? Like alcoholism runs in my family. And so for me, I'll see people falling off of porches, you know, women constantly cussing people out. What are you that upset about all the time, every day? And just like men sick, they tired, they would rather be at work or, you know, whatever, not coming home. It's probably like a telltale sign of something unhealthy happening. You just don't feel like dealing with it. So it's like people always say, you know, we didn't have those issues. We did. People just, like I said, kept it. They swept it under the rug. They did not talk about it, and people just didn't give a F. Like, you would see the crazies.
Right.
Excuse me.
I got you.
I'm trying to do this, trying to get into.
Yeah, I got you.
But that's how I would normally talk. But you would see people who you knew weren't right.
Yeah.
And you just keep going. Like, the person would fall, I'd be like, oh, I'll just go in the house.
Right, fall again. Okay.
Whatever.
Right.
They're the adults.
Right.
But the adults, just like, that's just Bill out there on the ground again. And so that's the thing. I think it was happening. We're so vocal now, or more vocal, and that's what's happening. As far as some of the stuff, because I'm in the middle. I do believe that some people, I feel like, may have had like an easier or just less situations they were put in where they needed to problem solve. So I feel like problem-solving skills is also something that could eliminate those who may be okay and can be better if they could just learn how to solve problems, their issues, where they don't end up depressed or sad, or more of the issues that we could eliminate if they could figure out that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree. I think, like you said, I think it's a balance. We got to get in the balance. I think we'll let children. I don't know, as I get older now and I look back, like, as children, we don't know what we're upset about. There's no comparison, though, to what our parents are facing in the real world about today. So I kind of understand why mom and dad home and say, well, go in the room. Girl, I don't want to hear that right now. It's not that they didn't care. I think it's just weight what I'm going through at work. Trying to pay bills, trying to take care of you, is no match to your friends not hanging with you or you having to do more homework. You get what I'm saying?
I understand completely as a parent.
Right.
And parenting is one of the hardest things you will do.
Right.
And creating a balance is hard.
Right.
Like as hell.
Right. I got you.
It's hard. But for me as a parent, I actually wrote on my vision board, best mom ever, to remind me, because you're right. When I'm writing, I have to set aside time to write.
Right.
So I have to let my daughter know, like, hey, you're going to have to do art, read a book, find something like on YouTube during this time.
Right.
And so to start out, I'll let her enter, but if it gets excessive where she's not giving me the time that I need, I'll put her out and tell her to stay out, or there's going to be a consequence.
Right.
Because you do have to still be an adult and get things done that kids just will not understand until they're older. I think, though, don't get wrapped up into it. Like, if I feel like I've written for 4 hours out the day, okay, I can take 20 minutes to play a game with my daughter real quick. So I find the balance by, if I can't take her to the park, if I can't do a play date, I can let her read to me at night for 5 minutes before we go to bed. Stuff like that. You have to remind yourself as a parent that they're still growing, and you still have to be putting stuff in them because they're remembering still. And this is them being molded in this very moment. So you have to put responsibility on yourself. But you also do have to let your child know, my life is a little bit different than yours as an adult. There are times where I'm going to need time to myself.
That's true, and I think it comes back to, like people say all the time, there's no book on parenting, right?
Right.
And every child will always be able to grow up and say, my mom and dad didn't do this. Right, because it's no perfect. Even when you grow up in mother and father with the white picket fence and y'all got the 2 dogs, that child still will grow up and say, my father missed the ball on this, my mother dropped the ball. You'll never have that.
Unless they're well-rounded. Unless they're children who just have an understanding. As they grow older, they get to see how the world operates, and they look at things from a fair point of view, like from what it might have been like as their parents. Or being a parent, when you okay, now I see why my mom couldn't do this at 9 or 10 at night, because she was dead tired. She had to work 12 hours. Exactly. So I think if you're an open-minded person and you are compassionate and you do try to put yourself in other people's shoes, I do think you'll be fine and you won't necessarily have negative things to say. But that's a part of upbringing too. Like your parents probably would have had to help you be able to think that way. Or your teachers, or someone in your environment. Because, like, my parents, Honestly, I feel like I had a fine life. I
Right.
really don't care. Like, it is
Right.
what it is.
Right.
It's how I
Right,
see it. You
right.
know, whatever they was doing, they
Whatever
did
they
stuff.
did it, right.
Yeah, it is
Right.
what it is. They
Right.
managed to make me all right.
All right,
You know.
right. I really appreciate that. I want to tell people where they can get the services from, as far as if they looking for some writing articles, how can they reach out to you?
Okay. So if you want me to write anything, or if you just want to look me up, you can find me on social media on Facebook or Instagram at Ishna, Ishna, Ykeal, Y''Keal. On both of those. For Instagram, it's a Y_Keal. And yeah, just hit me up, DM me about services, and we can go from there. Usually I'll provide either my email or my number, just if we need to talk or if we need to just message it. Each situation is different. That's how you can reach me.
What about, I want people to be able to get, especially that, the one that you co-authored about the daddy and daughter relationships. Where can they find that piece?
Daddy is available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Just put in Daddy, Reflections of Father-Daughter Relationships, edited by K.E. Garland, Garland. You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate Ms. Ishna coming through and kind of giving us some game, chopping it up with us about what's going on and kind of the things that she's seeking to do in the world. And guess what, y'all? Just like any other time, we'll be back next week. See you later.